She married a cold millionaire to save her brother, but what he did on their wedding night shocked her. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories every week. Your support truly means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The rain fell hard over the Florida coastline that evening, washing the glass windows of Seabreeze Financial Tower. Inside, under the cold white lights, Chloe Bennett stood clutching a folder against her chest. Her palms were damp, her heart pounding. Across the wide marble office sat Nathan Hale, the young CEO whose name ruled every newspaper headline in Palm Coast. His gray suit looked as if it had been cut from the same steel as his expression. "Mr. Hale, please." Chloe's voice trembled. "My brother did not mean to take the loan. He just needs time. I can pay it back, I promise." Nathan's eyes lifted from the contract on his desk. They were ocean blue and merciless. "Miss Bennett, your brother owes $250,000. Time is not the issue. Choices are." She swallowed hard. "Then tell me what to do." He leaned back slowly, fingers tapping the mahogany surface once, twice, before he spoke. "Marry me. Think of it as business." Olé. For a second, Chloe thought she had misheard. "I am sorry, what?" Nathan stood, walking toward the tall window where the storm raged outside. His reflection looked like a shadow carved from glass. "I have an upcoming merger that requires a stable image. A wife. 6 months, Miss Bennett. Your brother's debt cleared. Your family safe. In return, you sign this marriage contract and play the part." The sound of rain on the glass grew louder, matching the rhythm of her pulse. Chloe stared at the papers he slid toward her, her name already printed below the empty signature line. "This is insane," she whispered. "You do not even know me." "I know you are desperate," Nathan replied softly. "And desperation makes people honest." Lightning flashed across the skyline. For a heartbeat, Chloe saw her own reflection beside her thrift store blouse, her tired eyes, the faint tremor in her hand. Luke's face appeared in her mind, her younger brother, lying pale in a hospital bed, the bills piling higher every day. She picked up the pen. "If I do this," she said, her voice shaking but steady enough. "You will erase his debt completely?" Nathan nodded once. "Completely. But there will be rules." Chloe signed her name. The pen tip scraped the paper like a knife. Nathan reached for the document, his movements calm, detached. "Congratulations, Mrs. Hale. Our wedding is this Friday. Goodbye." As she turned to leave, her knees felt weak. She did not know whether she had saved her family or just sold her future. Outside, thunder rolled over Palm Coast. The storm had just begun. The storm moved on overnight, leaving the Florida sky washed clean and bright. But for Chloe Bennett, nothing felt clear at all. She stood in front of the mirror, inside a small bridal boutique in Palm Coast. The pale morning light fell through the window blinds, cutting across her face as the seamstress pinned the last hem of her simple ivory dress. She was not a bride by choice. She was a name on a contract. Her best friend, Maya, whispered beside her, "You do not have to go through with this, Chloe." Chloe forced a smile that did not reach her eyes. "If I walk away, Luke loses everything. I will be fine. It is just 6 months." Maya shook her head, but Chloe's resolve had already settled. The next day, the courthouse ceremony was short and cold. Nathan Hale stood beside her in a gray suit, looking like a man who could not be moved by anything human. When the judge pronounced them husband and wife, he merely nodded once, as if sealing another business deal. There were no kisses, no applause, only the faint hum of the ceiling fan and the scratch of a pen as they signed the certificate. Nathan's assistant handed Chloe a wedding ring. It was simple gold, no diamonds, perfectly polished, perfectly empty. By that evening, she was driven through the gates of Hale House, the modern glass mansion perched above the beach. The salty wind carried the sound of waves crashing far below. Inside, the air smelled of cedar and silence. Nathan walked ahead without looking back. "Your room is down the West Hall. Dinner is served at 7 sharp. My staff will take care of anything you need. Just remember our agreement, discretion, appearance, and distance." Chloe paused at the staircase, her shoes sinking slightly into the thick carpet. "And what about you?" she asked softly. He turned, eyes unreadable. I do not mix personal with professional, Mrs. Hale. Then he disappeared into his study, the door closing with a soft click. For a long time she just stood there, surrounded by marble and gold, feeling smaller than she had ever felt in her life. The ocean view stretched endlessly through the glass walls, yet she had never felt more trapped. Dinner that night was painfully formal. A long table, crystal glasses, a meal prepared for two but eaten in silence. Nathan barely spoke, except to ask if she preferred red or white wine. She said water. He nodded, as if that confirmed what he already thought of her. Afterward, she wandered through the house, finding rooms filled with art that looked too expensive to feel real. In one corner of the library, she noticed a picture frame turned face down. Curious, she lifted it. A woman smiled back from the photo, a beautiful brunette in a white dress standing beside Nathan. Her stomach tightened. She set it down carefully and backed away. Later, lying awake in the guest bedroom, she could hear the ocean beyond the balcony and the steady ticking of the wall clock. The sheets smelled like lavender and starch. She thought about Luke, about her mother's worried face, and about the man sleeping somewhere across the hall who now, legally, was her husband. "What have I done?" she whispered into the darkness. Down the corridor, Nathan stood by the window of his private office, the city lights flickering against the glass. He looked at the same framed photograph, the same woman Chloe had seen. His jaw tightened as he slipped the picture into a drawer and shut it firmly. The storm outside had passed, but inside Hale House, a colder one was just beginning. Morning sunlight poured through the tall glass windows of Hale House, catching the edge of the dining table like a blade of gold. Chloe Bennett sat quietly at one end, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had already gone cold. The chef had served pancakes, fruit, and fresh orange juice, but she barely touched any of it. Across the table, Nathan Hale read through a stack of printed emails, his expression unreadable. The air between them was polite, distant, and heavy. When the butler excused himself, Chloe finally spoke. "Mr. Hale, may I ask when this arrangement becomes public?" Nathan looked up, his gaze calm but sharp. "You will attend an event with me this Saturday in Miami. It is a charity dinner for the Hale Foundation. Our first public appearance as husband and wife. It will not require affection, only presentation." Chloe nodded slowly. "Understood." He closed the folder in front of him. "There are rules you must follow, Mrs. Hale." Her heart thumped. "Rules?" He slid a single page across the table, typed lines, each numbered. His voice stayed even. "Number 1, no press interviews. Number 2, no discussion of this contract with anyone. Number 3, no interference with my business decisions. Number 4, attend all scheduled events as my spouse. Number 5, after 6 months, the contract ends. You will receive the agreed payment, and we part ways." Chloe read every line, her stomach twisting tighter with each word. "You really thought of everything." "I run a corporation," Nathan said quietly. "Clarity prevents chaos." She wanted to ask him why a man like him needed to marry anyone at all, but something in his face stopped her. There was no warmth to be found there, only control. That afternoon, a stylist arrived with racks of designer clothes. Chloe stood still as they measured her, pinned fabric, and discussed colors. The dresses were elegant, beautiful, and far too expensive for someone who once counted every dollar. She caught her reflection in the mirror and barely recognized herself. That evening, as the Florida sun dipped into the Atlantic, Nathan appeared at the base of the staircase in a dark navy suit. "Ready?" he asked. Chloe nodded, clutching her small clutch bag. "As ready as I can be." The drive to Miami was long and quiet. The city lights glowed like distant fireflies as they arrived at the Ocean View Hotel ballroom. Flashbulbs exploded the moment they stepped out of the car. Nathan reached for her hand, not with affection, but precision like he was checking a box. "Smile," he murmured. "You are Mrs. Hale now." Inside the grand hall, conversations hummed and champagne glasses clinked. Chloe felt the weight of every stare. Nathan moved through the crowd with practiced charm, shaking hands, greeting partners, never losing that cool composure. She followed his lead, her heart racing. At one point, a woman in a glittering silver gown leaned in with a sly smile. "So this is your new wife, Nathan? She is quite a surprise." Chloe froze, but Nathan's tone stayed smooth. "Yes, she is. That is why I married her." The woman blinked, speechless. Nathan turned to Chloe, offering his arm. Come, I want to introduce you to someone. For a fleeting second, she saw something human in his eyes, a faint spark that vanished as quickly as it appeared. Hours later, back at Hale House, Chloe kicked off her heels and exhaled. The night had been a performance, and somehow, she had survived it. She walked toward the balcony, the ocean stretching dark and endless before her. Behind her, she heard Nathan's footsteps stop at the doorway. You handled yourself well tonight, he said quietly. Thank you, she answered, turning halfway toward him. For a second, I almost believed it was real. He met her gaze, silent, then turned away. When he left, she stayed by the railing, staring at the waves below. Somewhere between duty and deception, something fragile had begun to stir. Neither of them wanted to name it yet, but it was there like the first breeze before a storm. The next few weeks passed like a blur of expensive cars, evening galas, and endless introductions. Chloe Bennett had learned how to walk beside Nathan Hale without stumbling, how to smile at the right moment, and how to pretend that the life around her was not borrowed. By day, she explored the quiet corners of Hale House, finding comfort in the garden overlooking the Atlantic. The sound of the waves reminded her of home, of simpler mornings before contracts and marble floors. She often sketched there, her small notebook hidden in her purse. Nathan noticed but never said a word. He watched her from a distance, usually while speaking on the phone about business mergers and market reports. To everyone else, he was the perfect husband. To her, he was still a mystery. One morning, a sleek black car arrived with a personal assistant and a woman named Rachel Voss, a well-known etiquette coach. Mr. Hale asked me to prepare you for next week's corporate conference, Rachel said politely. We will work on posture, speech, and public presentation. For 2 hours each day, Chloe practiced walking, greeting, and delivering polite smiles. She tried to stay patient, though inside, she hated every minute of it. After one session, she muttered, I am not a product to be displayed. Nathan, who had entered quietly, replied, You are not, but people in that room will see you that way. The less they underestimate you, the better. His words stung because they were not cruel, they were true. That evening, he came home early for once. The air smelled of ocean salt and grilled food. To her surprise, Nathan had ordered a small dinner to be served on the terrace, instead of the formal dining hall. The glow of the setting sun painted the sky orange and pink. Chloe hesitated. Is this another public rehearsal? He almost smiled. No. Just dinner. Tom. They ate quietly, but something in the silence felt softer than before. Nathan set down his fork. You handled yourself well in Miami, he said. I know it was not easy. Chloe shrugged lightly. You were right. Clarity prevents chaos. He looked at her for a long moment, as if hearing his own words reflected back at him. It is strange, he said finally, how you can live in the same house with someone and still feel like strangers. Hortine. The wind moved through her hair, and for the first time, she saw the man beneath the armor, tired, careful, human. When dinner ended, Chloe returned to her room, but she could not sleep. She kept replaying his voice in her head, that quiet note of honesty that did not fit the image of the ruthless millionaire everyone described. Down the hall, Nathan stood on his balcony, looking out at the dark horizon. For the first time in years, he felt something stir inside him, something dangerously close to peace. In the distance, thunder rolled over the ocean again, faint but growing. Neither of them knew that the next storm would not come from the sky, but from the truth waiting to be uncovered. The morning sun broke through thin clouds as Chloe Bennett hurried down the marble staircase, clutching a stack of invitations. The Hale Foundation's annual charity auction was that evening, and she had been asked to stand beside Nathan Hale for the first time in front of hundreds of cameras. Inside the foyer, Nathan adjusted his cufflinks while his assistant, Eric, reviewed the event schedule. Press interviews start at 6, dinner at 7, speeches at 8, Eric said briskly. Remember, the reporters already know about your marriage. Keep answers short and neutral. Nathan nodded. Thank you, Eric. That will be all. When they were alone, he glanced at Chloe. This event matters. Investors watch everything we do. Stay close, and if someone asks too much, just smile. Chloe tried to sound confident. I can handle it. That evening, the ballroom at the Palm Coast Grand Hotel glittered with chandeliers and flashes from photographers' cameras. Music swelled, laughter filled the air, and Chloe's pulse quickened as she stepped onto the red carpet beside Nathan. She felt the weight of every eye on her. A reporter leaned in with a microphone. "Mr. Hale, your marriage came as a surprise. Would you say love or business brought you together?" Nathan's expression did not change. "Respect," he said smoothly. "That is all that really matters." The reporter turned to Chloe. "And what about you, Mrs. Hale?" She hesitated for a breath. Sometimes the unexpected teaches us what respect really means. "Daughter." Nathan glanced sideways at her, the faintest trace of surprise flickering in his eyes. Inside, the event continued flawlessly. Chloe moved through conversations with grace, surprising even herself. When a guest spilled champagne near the table, she knelt quickly to help the servers clean up, brushing off their apologies. Her kindness drew quiet smiles from the staff and murmurs from the guests. Later, during the auction, an elderly woman thanked Chloe for a donation she had suggested earlier that week funding medical bills for retired teachers. "You have a good heart, dear," the woman said warmly. Across the room, Nathan watched. For the first time, he saw how people looked at Chloe, not as his contract wife, but as someone real. Someone who made them feel safe. After the speeches, as guests drifted away, one of Nathan's longtime business partners approached. Evelyn Cross, a sharp-tongued investor in her 40s, smiled thinly. "Impressive performance, Nathan. Your wife is charming. Almost too charming." Her words carried a hint of poison. "Careful," Nathan replied evenly. "Some performances are more honest than reality." When Evelyn walked away, Chloe approached. "Is she a friend?" "Something like that," Nathan said. "She prefers to test people rather than trust them." Chloe looked around the quieting ballroom. "You are not so different." "Tuesday." Nathan gave a soft breath that might have been a laugh. "Perhaps." As they left the hotel, the night air carried a light drizzle, cooling the Florida heat. Nathan opened the car door for her, and for once, it did not feel like an act. In the silence of the drive home, their reflections blended in the window glass, the man who did not believe in love, and the woman who had married for duty. Neither of them realized that the first real crack in the contract had already begun to show. Days turned into weeks after the charity gala, and Hale House began to feel less like a museum and more like something alive. The silence was still there, but it had softened. Chloe Bennett often found Nathan working late in his study. His jacket hung over the back of his chair, his tie loosened, the glow of the desk lamp outlining his tired features. One evening, she brought him a cup of coffee. "You should rest," she said quietly. He looked up from the computer screen. "I did not ask for coffee." "I know," she replied, setting the cup beside him. "But you need it." Nathan hesitated, then gave a small nod. "Thank you." It was the first time she had seen him hesitate to maintain his distance. That night, thunder rumbled outside. Rain began to fall against the glass walls of the house. The power flickered once, then went out completely, plunging the rooms into darkness. Chloe grabbed a flashlight from the hall drawer and followed the faint sound of footsteps until she found Nathan standing by the balcony doors, staring out at the storm. "The generator will start in a minute," he said without turning. She stepped closer. "Do storms bother you?" His voice was low. "Not storms, memories." The rain drummed harder on the roof. She waited, saying nothing, until he finally continued. "My father built this company from nothing. When he died, the board wanted me to sell it. My fiancé at the time wanted to leave the country instead. She walked out the night before our wedding. I stopped believing people meant what they said after that." Chloe held the flashlight steady, watching the tension in his shoulders. "So that is why you wrote a contract for marriage," she said softly, "to make sure no one could walk away again." He gave a dry laugh. "Something like that?" "Two." The flashlight flickered, and for a brief second their faces were only inches apart, both caught in the thin silver glow. "You cannot control loyalty," she said. "You can only earn it." Nathan looked at her, and in that moment, the air between them shifted. The sound of rain filled the silence. They did not know how to break. The generator hummed back to life, lights flickering on again. Nathan stepped back first. "You should get some sleep," he said quietly. Chloe nodded and left the study, but her heart was beating too fast to rest. The next morning, the household staff noticed something new. Nathan joined Chloe for breakfast. It was brief, polite, almost awkward, but the gesture itself spoke louder than words. Over the following days, the small changes continued. He asked about her sketches, listened when she mentioned Luke's recovery, and once even laughed a real, unguarded laugh at her clumsy attempt to make pancakes. The walls of Hale House, once cold and distant, began to warm with something neither of them dared to name. Late one evening, as Chloe closed her sketchbook, she found Nathan standing in the doorway. "You have talent," he said simply. "You should not hide it." She smiled faintly. "I am still learning." "So am I," he said almost to himself before walking away. Outside, the Florida wind carried the scent of salt and jasmine. Inside, two strangers bound by paper were slowly learning what it meant to belong. The following week, the calm rhythm inside Hale House broke without warning. A morning newspaper hit the front steps with a headline that made Chloe Bennett's stomach twist. "Nathan Hale's marriage a business deal." Leaked contract raises questions. Her hands shook as she read the lines. Every private detail of their agreement was printed for the world to see: the 6-month term, the payment, the conditions. Someone had betrayed them. Moments later, Nathan stormed into the living room, phone in hand, his jaw tight. "Who leaked this?" he demanded to his assistant, Eric, who followed close behind. "We are still investigating," Eric said quickly. But the first post appeared on Evelyn Cross's media outlet. It spread within minutes. Nathan's voice dropped, sharp as glass. "Of course it did." Chloe stood frozen by the window, the paper clutched in her hand. "Everyone will think I did this," she said softly. Nathan turned toward her, his expression unreadable. "Did you?" The question hit like a slap. "No, I would never," he interrupted coldly. "Forgive me, Mrs. Hale, but trust is not something I give easily." The words cut deeper than she expected. She set the paper down and walked away before he could see the tears in her eyes. By evening, the story had gone viral. Reporters waited outside the gates, shouting questions as cars passed. Social media filled with cruel comments: gold digger, contract bride, paid actress. Every word carved into her like a blade. Inside, Nathan's legal team worked to contain the damage. Investors were calling, and the company's stock had started to slip. Hale Group's reputation was on fire. When Chloe entered the study to speak with him, Nathan barely looked up. "You should stay inside until this settles," he said. "Public appearances are canceled. The less they see of you, the better." "Martu," her voice trembled. "So now I am the problem to hide." He exhaled sharply. "That is not what I meant." "Then what did you mean, Nathan?" she said, her anger breaking through. "That I was good enough to stand beside you when it helped your image, but not when things fall apart?" For the first time, his composure cracked. "I am trying to protect you." "From what?" she shouted. "From a world you already taught me not to trust?" The silence that followed was deafening. Nathan's hands clenched at his sides. "This was never supposed to get personal," he said quietly. Chloe's voice dropped to a whisper. "Maybe that is the only real mistake we made." She turned and left, her footsteps echoing through the long hallway. Outside, the flash of cameras lit up the dark sky like lightning. Chloe stepped into the rain without an umbrella, her heart pounding. She did not know where she was going, only that she could not stay another minute inside that house of secrets. Back inside, Nathan watched her car disappear down the driveway. For the first time in years, he felt something worse than anger-fear. Fear that the one person who had made his world feel human again was gone. He picked up the newspaper still lying on the table. The headline blurred as rain hit the window behind him. For a man who had always controlled every outcome, this was the one thing he could not fix with money, power, or pride. 3 days passed before Nathan Hale saw Chloe Bennett again. The house felt like an empty shell without her laughter, without the sound of her footsteps in the hallway. The media storm had quieted, but the damage lingered. Investors had backed away, board members questioned his judgment, and he barely slept. Late one night, Nathan sat alone in his office, staring at the framed photo of his father on the wall. For the first time, the silence felt heavier than the noise outside. He had built everything to be unshakable: his company, his reputation, his control, but now, the one thing he wanted to hold on to had slipped through his hands. The phone on his desk buzzed. It was Eric. "Sir, we traced the leak," he said. "It came from Evelyn Cross's team. They hacked internal files. She wanted leverage for the upcoming merger." Nathan's voice hardened. "Get legal to prepare a statement and file a lawsuit immediately. And find out where Mrs. Hale is staying." Eric hesitated. "Are you sure she will want to see you?" "I have made enough assumptions about her," Nathan said quietly. "It is time to stop." The next morning, Chloe was helping her brother Luke, at a small community center near the pier. She had been volunteering there, trying to stay away from the headlines and rebuild her peace. When she looked up, Nathan was standing at the entrance, raincoat draped over his arm. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Chloe said softly, "You found me." "Tomper, I never should have let you leave," Nathan said. "The leak was not your fault. It was Evelyn Cross. I have proof." Chloe nodded but kept her distance. "That does not change what you said." "I know," he admitted. "You were right. I treated you like a solution, not a person. You deserved better than a contract." Her eyes softened, but the hurt was still there. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I cannot undo what happened," he said. "But I can show you what I have learned from it." "Number?" He handed her a white envelope. Inside was an invitation printed on thick paper. The Bennett Foundation for Second Chances launch gala, Saturday night. "I renamed the fund," he said quietly. "It will help families in debt start over. It is what you wanted from the beginning, even when you had nothing to gain." Chloe's breath caught. "Nathan, you did not have to." "I did," he interrupted gently. "Because you showed me that strength is not about control. It is about compassion, and that is something money never taught me." The hall fell silent, except for the rain tapping softly on the windows. Nathan took a careful step closer. "I do not expect forgiveness, Chloe. I only ask you to come to the gala. See what your kindness started. If you walk away after that, I will understand." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she looked down at the invitation and whispered, "I will think about it." Artine. When he left, Chloe stood by the window, holding the envelope against her chest. Outside, the rain had stopped, and sunlight broke through the clouds, spilling golden light across the floor. It felt like a sign, not that everything was fixed, but that maybe, just maybe, it could be. The night of the gala arrived with the soft glow of lanterns and music spilling out from the glass hall overlooking Palm Coast. The banner above the entrance read, "The Bennett Foundation for Second Chances." Guests mingled in elegant gowns and tuxedos, unaware of the weight behind the name. When Chloe Bennett stepped through the doors, conversations paused. She wore a pale blue dress, simple yet graceful, her hair swept back. She looked nervous but determined. The last time she had stood in front of flashing cameras, she was the subject of scandal. Tonight, she was something entirely different. Across the room, Nathan Hale turned and saw her. For a moment, every sound seemed to fade. He excused himself from a group of investors and walked toward her. "You came," he said softly. "I did," Chloe replied. "It would have been rude to ignore an invitation with my own name on it." A faint smile crossed his face. "I suppose it would." The lights dimmed as the host called for attention. Nathan stepped onto the small stage, the ocean visible through the tall windows behind him. "Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we celebrate not wealth, but redemption. This foundation began because one woman reminded me that compassion is the greatest form of strength." He gestured toward the large canvas displayed beside him. It was one of Chloe's sketches, a pair of hands releasing a paper bird into the sky. The audience applauded, unaware of the tears welling in Chloe's eyes. Nathan continued, his voice steady but full of emotion. "This project will clear debts for hundreds of families and give them a fresh start. But before any of this could exist, someone had to teach me what forgiveness truly looks like." He stepped down from the stage and walked to where Chloe stood. The crowd fell silent. He took a deep breath. "I once asked you to marry me for all the wrong reasons. I built walls because I was afraid to lose control. But tonight, I am asking you something without conditions, without contracts." He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket and opened it. Inside was a simple gold ring, the same design as before, but this time engraved with the words, "No terms, no end." Nathan's voice was quiet but clear. "Chloe Bennett, will you marry me again, this time for real?" For a heartbeat, the entire room seemed to hold its breath. Chloe looked at the ring, then at the man who had once been nothing but ice. Slowly, she smiled. "You never make anything simple, do you?" He shook his head. "Not when it matters." "Dar." She reached out, her voice trembling but certain. "Yes, Nathan. This time. For real." The audience erupted into applause. Nathan slipped the ring onto her finger and pulled her into his arms. Outside the windows, the night sky reflected over the calm Atlantic, the waves glimmering with silver light. Later, As the guests toasted and music played, Chloe stood on the balcony, the wind lifting her hair. Nathan joined her, resting his hand over hers. "I used to think love was a risk I could not afford," he said quietly. "But you turned it into my greatest investment." She smiled up at him. "Then promise me one thing, no more contracts." He nodded, "Only promises." Below them, the lights of the new foundation shone against the ocean. The storm that had once divided them was gone, replaced by something stronger: truth, forgiveness, and a love that no paper could define.